What's up, my comic comrades? After a long wait and an intense amount of hype, the Caped Crusader is returning to the big screen this coming week in The Batman, with Robert Pattinson finally donning the cape and cowl as a younger Bruce Wayne very early in Batman's crime-fighting days. In fact, the Batman film takes place during Bruce Wayne's second year as a vigilante. So for today, it seems fitting to highlight Frank Miller's iconic 4-issue miniseries, Batman Year One, as the story follows Bruce Wayne during his first year as Batman. Now, the Batman movie isn't based on the comic, but it definitely seems that Matt Reeves drew some inspiration from it. So with that in mind, let's see what Batman's early years looked like in the comics before we get to see the live action take on Friday. The Batman Year One storyline was published in the main Batman title back in 1987, in issues 404 through 407 of Batman. It was written by the great Frank Miller and drawn by the great David Mazzucchelli. As the story's title implies, it shows us what the first year of Batman was like, as he was just stepping into the cowl. But it also gives us a deep dive into Jim Gordon, who has recently moved to Gotham City to join the Gotham City Police Department. Essentially, we see the two of them meet for the first time and start their relationship. With that said, let's just jump into it and start breaking down the story. Issue 404 of Batman, part 1 of the story, starts off with both Jim Gordon and Bruce Wayne coming to Gotham. But they're coming to Gotham in two very different ways. Jim is taking the train, which he says is absolutely horrible, and there's no way his pregnant wife Barbara Keene will. He's gonna make sure she flies here. However, we see Bruce Wayne land via an airplane because Bruce Wayne. There's a bunch of media greeting him saying, "Welcome, Mr. Wayne, sir. How's it feel to be back? Any plans, Mr. Wayne? Any truth to the rumors?" As news reports say, the 25-year-old heir to the Wayne's millions declined to comment on rumors of romance in his life, or his plans to return to Gotham City after 20 years abroad. Anyway, once Gordon gets set up with GCPD on his first patrol, he learns how jacked up and corrupt Gotham law enforcement is, as his partner and senior officer Detective Flass starts beating up a teenager he thinks are up to no good, using physical force for no real reason at all. Jim doesn't intervene, but he's learning real quick being a GCPD officer is not going to be what he expected. After this, we see Bruce Wayne return to Wayne Manor, which is his first time there after he spent years training abroad in martial arts, manhunting, and science. And we find out he's waiting for the right time to strike while continuing to train because he's going to be Gotham's savior. A few days later, Bruce decides to start his mission in Gotham, but not before giving himself a fake scar to disguise himself because he's a Gotham celebrity. Now in disguise, he goes out on his first street mission in the red light district of Gotham. As Bruce is walking the streets, a young prostitute named Holly Robinson tries to proposition Bruce, if you know what I mean. Her pimp sees this and gets instantly mad because apparently she didn't proposition Bruce correctly. As the pimp says, she's supposed to know what type of guys would want a girl her age. When the pimp starts getting physical with her, Bruce of course steps in and knocks out the pimp with a kick. But what could I say, the pimp's prostitutes are loyal as they start attacking Bruce. Then Holly, the girl he tried to protect, stabs him in the leg. At this point, Selina Kyle, who's watching from an apartment window, who is also a dominatrix in the story, jumps down to help the prostitutes as Bruce is easily handling each of them. He then starts fighting Selina, but the cops show up and one ends up shooting Bruce. At which point, they cuff him and throw him into the back of their cop car. But as they're transporting him, he's able to break out of the cuffs and grab the officer's head who's driving, causing him to get into a car accident, smashing into a semi-truck. Bruce is able to pull himself and the officers out of the wreckage. He then gets in a car and drives himself back to Wayne Manor. Once Bruce makes his way back into Wayne Manor, he sits down bloody and broken in a chair staring out the window. He then starts thinking, "I've tried to be patient. I've tried to wait, but I have to know. How, Father? How do I do it? What do I use to make them afraid?" And as he reminisces of the night his parents were killed, he says, "Since the walk that night, and the man with frightened hollow eyes, and the voice like glass being crushed, since all sense left my life without warning, it comes, crashing through the window of your study and mine. I have seen it before somewhere. It frightened me as a boy. Frightened me. Yes, Father, I shall become a bat." As he watches the bat come crashing through the window of the study. And that brings us to the end of issue 404 of Batman and leads us into issue 405. In this issue, we see Jim Gordon become a minor celebrity in Gotham City after saving a bunch of orphans from an insane man. An officer then goes to Commissioner Loeb complaining, saying he humiliated me in front of my men, as Gordon was not about to let the children be harmed by that psychopath. The commissioner says, "Nothing but trouble, that one. You do know I sympathize, don't you, Brandon?" "Yes, you do. And you know I'd like nothing better than to remove him from service. My good friend Detective Flass has made several suggestions along those lines. But we must be patient. Gordon has the press on his side," as he holds up the front page of the newspaper that says Hero Cop with Gordon's picture. After this, we see Bruce's first outing as the Batman. and his first act is to stop 3 teenagers from stealing televisions. He starts fighting the teens on a fire escape, eventually bringing them all down. After this, we are taken to GCPD, where Gordon is telling officers, "If we could stop becoming hysterical for a moment, gentlemen, our vigilante, or Batman as he's called, has apparently committed 78 acts of assault in the past 5 weeks. During this time, certain patterns of timing and a method have emerged. It is clear that he possesses extraordinary physical skill." Detective Flass says, "Not he, it." Gordon asks, "You've got something to contribute, Detective Flass?" He replies, "He's not human. I'm just telling you, he's not human." Gordon says, "Thank you, Detective Flass. The vigilante has been careful to remain unpredictable, choosing the neighborhoods for his assaults at random. He constantly operates between the hours of midnight and 4 a.m. So we see that the legend of the Batman is quickly growing in Gotham as the Dark Knight is taking out criminals each and every night. And one night, a bunch of corrupt leaders in Gotham and gangsters such as Carmine Falcone gather for a dinner party. And of course, Commissioner Loeb is there, explaining to all these corrupt leaders and gangsters why Batman is politically advantageous to themselves. All the while, Batman is sneaking onto the grounds of their dinner party, taking out all the guards who are surrounding the perimeter. At this point, Batman cuts the electricity to the house and then blows a hole in the wall, revealing himself to all of them as they stare at his ominous silhouette. Through the smoke, Batman says, "Ladies and gentlemen, you have eaten well. You have eaten Gotham's wealth, its spirit. Your feast is nearly over. From this moment on, none of you are safe." As he puts out a small pan fire in the room that's the only thing giving light. The next morning, Commissioner Loeb tells Gordon, "No excuses, Gordon. The vigilante goes under instantly or it's your job." With Gordon saying, "Yes, sir." So Gordon puts Lieutenant Essen undercover to pretend she's getting robbed by the church to get Batman to come and save her. But Batman doesn't fall for it, saying there are 6 more officers waiting crouched in stoops and garage dumpsters down the block. Gordon's wasting a lot of manpower on these traps. A little while after this, we see Batman is continuing to crack down on crime in Gotham as he freaking hogtied Carmine Falcone butt naked and left him in his bed for his men to find. We also find out after this the District Attorney Harvey Dent has become Batman's first ally in Gotham, even hiding him from Jim Gordon. But as fate would have it, Batman would eventually run into James Gordon when he saves a homeless lady from getting hit by a truck. Essen and Gordon then try to take Batman down, saying, "Don't move," but he quickly gets away and runs into a nearby building. Although while running away, one of the cops that's now on the scene is able to shoot Batman in the leg. But the commissioner, just wanting Batman out of his hair, has a helicopter drop a bomb on the building Batman's in, as he says, "It's due for demolition anyway." And with that, issue 405 ends. In issue 406, we learn Batman didn't die because, come on, he's the Dark Knight, and even though it's his first year, he still survives by hiding in a fortified basement. To make matters worse, Batman was forced to abandon his utility belt as it caught fire. After this, we see the SWAT team is sent in to kill anyone alive in the building. At this point, Batman is at a disadvantage, especially without his utility belt. But he does still have a signal device that's able to attract bats from his Batcave, which he can use as a diversion to create an escape route. So just like we've seen in Batman Begins, a swarm of bats starts covering the area, causing complete chaos. This gives Batman the advantage and distraction he needs to defeat the SWAT team and escape. But it gets better. After Selina Kyle sees all this, she's inspired to begin a life of crime wearing a costume of her own, which is kind of funny because she saw someone dressing up as a bat saving people, so thought to herself, "I'm gonna dress up as a cat and steal things." And towards the end of the issue, we see Gordon getting super close with Lieutenant Essen. So much so, he ends up having an affair with her. We also see Selina Kyle create and don her Catwoman costume for the first time. The issue then ends with Gordon sitting on a bed holding his revolver as his pregnant wife sleeps, while he contemplates what he's going to do here in Gotham and what he should do about the Batman. And with that, issue 406 ends and brings us to the 4th and final issue, Batman 407. Issue 407 opens up with us seeing Jim Gordon continuing his affair with Sarah Essen. He even says he's falling in love with her, but after 2 months of dating, she learned that Gordon has a pregnant wife and is going to be a father soon. At which point she chooses to be transferred out of Gotham so she doesn't damage Gordon's relationship with his family. With Sarah now gone, Gordon is all by himself to take down the Batman. After this, Gordon brings his wife to a meeting he has with Bruce Wayne, because him and several others suspect Bruce Wayne is the Batman. And Bruce takes the meeting while in a robe with a girl who doesn't speak English in lingerie cuddling next to him as he's drinking champagne, saying, "It is Batman you want to talk about, isn't it? Something about me being him? Excuse me, it must be the champagne. I neglected to introduce my friend. You see, I'm not sure of her name and she doesn't speak any language I know." Jim's wife says, "That must be convenient." Jim then tells her, "Barbara, Mr. Wayne, I need to know where you were on the following dates." Bruce just laughs and rings for Alfred, who brings his date book. As Gordon says, "I could auction off the phone numbers in the date book for a fortune. They're all women, they're all famous, they're all beautiful." Then after leaving Wayne Manor, Gordon tells his wife Barbara about the affair he had with Sarah. After this, months pass and we see Catwoman getting fed up with petty crimes, so she goes after Carmine Falcone hoping to steal his valuables. But she's in over her head and almost got taken out, but she had help from Batman, who's hiding in the shadows throwing batarangs at men pointing guns at her. After this, we see Bruce Wayne back at Wayne Manor play an audio device he used to record Falcone's conversation and is able to confirm that Falcone wants to kill Gordon's family. Of course, Bruce isn't going to let that happen, even though Gordon was hunting him down, so he disguises himself as a motorcyclist. Gordon then gets a call in the middle of the night from Commissioner Loeb while holding his screaming baby. While leaving on Loeb's orders, Gordon sees a motorcyclist, which is Bruce, enter his home garage. And as one would, he turns back only to discover Vitti and his men are already holding his family hostage. Vitti flees the scene with Gordon's infant son while holding a knife to the baby's face. Gordon then shoots one of the men holding his wife, but then gets shot in the shoulder. They then throw Barbara in the car and speed off. Gordon, not knowing what to do, shoots Bruce and takes his motorcycle to chase after his family. Bruce quickly gets back on his feet and hops on a bicycle and then chases after them. A freaking bicycle, only Batman would do that. The car chase ends with crashing on the bridge when Gordon shoots one of the tires of Vendetti's car. Gordon then struggles to get his baby back, but the baby eventually falls off the bridge. And like any dad would do, Gordon jumps off the bridge with Vitti holding onto him as he attempts to save his own son. We then see Bruce catch up to them and he leaps off the bridge to save the baby, which of course he does. Gordon, now realizing that he's looking at an unmasked Batman, tells Bruce that he'll keep his secret and thanks him for saving his son's life. He then says, "You know I'm practically blind without my glasses. Siren's coming. You'd better go." Then on the last page of the story, Flash turns on Loeb by giving Harvey Dent the evidence and testimony needed to implicate him, forcing Loeb to resign in disgrace. At this point, Gordon is promoted to captain, and we see him stand on a rooftop waiting to meet the Batman to investigate a new threat, saying there's a real panic on. Somebody's threatened to poison the Gotham Reservoir. Calls himself the Joker. "I've got a friend coming who might be able to help. Should be here any minute." And with that, this epic story comes to an end. What can I say, guys? Batman Year One is an absolute classic and easily one of the top 5 Batman stories of all time. But don't take our word for it. You want to read this one for yourselves. Again, it's on any must-read Batman list for a reason. So read it, support the characters, and get all the little nuances and amazingness of the story for yourself. But what did you guys think about Batman Year One? Clearly, you know I love it, but do you love it as much as we do? Let us know in the comments. And that's going to bring today's episode of Variant to a close. But if you like today's DC goodness, check out this one right here. And if you like all of our videos, subscribe, like, and comment. It helps the channel grow. But other than that, I'll see you guys next time when I talk about all things comics.